In regard to the coronavirus pandemic we are dealing with, in the US chart, I believe it's reflected by way of the late Capricorn planets opposing Mercury, and probably most especially Neptune moving into a square to Mars opposing itself. And the reason is the Mars in the US chart is connected to the 12th house, and therefore becomes a problem health planet, major problem health planet. And then Mercury is in the 8th, and the 8th is another house that is pertinent in this case because this is where all the infections would be. So this tells us why the country is being affected. But then you have to look at where these planets are going, and Neptune is going to station at around 21 degrees Pisces in the summer. Now, the expected outcome around the coronavirus is that by then it's likely to have receded. And let's suppose that it does. The problem is that Neptune will then retrograde to earlier degrees, and then next year take another crack at these degrees, even more solidly so that in 2021, by the spring period, it's directly squaring Mars and opposing itself. This, to me, may be a signal that this thing will come back and perhaps be especially dangerous. So, bottom line, we have to be careful. And what I would suggest to people that have an astrological interest is to look at their own chart and examine your own 6th house, 12th house, 8th house planets and aspects and see what is going on in transits, and especially in transits, to some extent also in progressions and solar arcs. The ruler of the ascendant is also important. If you've looked at your chart over the years, you should be able to tell as time is passing where your health vulnerabilities are, and so then you can take more precautions, which, aside from following the common sense guidelines that tell you to wash your hands and avoid infecting other people, there's also the question of stress around getting enough sleep and eating good food, because to my understanding that tends to be the most dangerous factor. If you're able to keep your immune system strong, then this gives you the best chance of avoiding problems. And with the US, given that the Neptune is doing this in 2020 and 2021, and to be honest, over here Jupiter and Saturn are going to get out of Capricorn, but Pluto will still be affecting this Mercury for some time to come. It'll still affect it in 2021 as well. So there's a definite possibility that this thing could have long-term traction. The thing with astrology, though, is you can't ever say that 100%, because what can happen, and it happens very frequently, is that you're seeing a factor that correlates with the aspects such as this, and then you discover that by the time you get into the second phase, it's some other thing that is affecting the health situation. For example, let's suppose there is a Democrat gets elected in November of 2020, which is a distinct possibility. Then now what you have is these aspects also correspond to health, but now you're talking about a health battle around changing the legislation and the way healthcare is transacted in this country. And this is exactly what happened in 2008 when Obama was elected, because at the time Pluto was opposing the US Venus, which rules the US 6th house, and therefore That was not a pandemic. In fact, what that was the healthcare upheaval. Although now that I remember, there was something around public health as well. There was some kind of scare, although it wasn't as intense as this coronavirus situation. So, bottom line, I would urge everyone to take care of themselves and examine your own charts carefully.